Good morning, everyone. It's Helen Prosser here from Brilliant Beginnings. I'm one of the founders here. I'm really delighted to be talking to you today on Thursday, December the 16th, with 9 days till Christmas. But I'm not going to spend too much time talking because I'm really excited to be talking to some of our amazing surrogate managers. For those of you who have joined us before for any of our Ask BB Anything series, you'll know that what we're trying to do here is really to pull together some of the key questions that would be surrogates, potential women who are thinking about surrogacy, as well as some of our experienced surrogates, so that we can all get together and answer some of those key questions. We've just been thinking, as we all do at the end of the year, thinking about all the phenomenal things that our surrogates and our surrogate teams have been doing over the last 12 months. But then when I think back, actually, we set up Brilliant Beginnings in 2013, and it's really been such an extraordinary journey to the point where we are today. So, I think we're today 66 babies in. So the team here really just have not just that phenomenal lived experience with their own personal journeys, but they've also got access to all of those other journeys, and not just the ones that achieve the result of helping people complete their family, but those who have just even stepped up to the journey to start things. It really is such a privilege to be joined by some of our particularly well-experienced surrogates and hear from them. And today we want to just explore with Lissa, Tracy, and T some of their hopes and some of their motivations around their journey as a surrogate and how they began to think about their journey, but also now in relation to their roles and what they do, and for them, what is really the important parts of that hope and how that has flavored and colored their journeys along the way. So, as I said, I'm joined by Lissa, who is an experienced two-time surrogate, helping a set of IPs when she was based in the US, and also through Brilliant Beginnings when she was based here in the UK. She's also a doula, so not only a surrogate extraordinaire, but also a doula extraordinaire, and now is helping many of our would-be women who are thinking about surrogacy understand the process, as well as supporting some of our intended parents in their journey to the US. So, Lissa, to you, in terms of your motivations and hopes for your journeys, I mean, obviously two extremely different journeys and projects, if you like. What would you say to other surrogates about how important it is to share some of your hopes and dreams with your IPs, before, maybe during and after your match?
Absolutely. Thank you, Helen. As Helen was saying, I have done two surrogate journeys, one in the US, in California, and one in the UK. And they have been wildly different, and just both, fortunately, so spectacular and incredible. Um, and, I think, as Helen was saying, it's just so important to chat with your IPs about what you are hoping for in your journey, what your expectations are, and especially um, you, what got you surrogacy originally. And I thankfully fell pregnant. I was so lucky to be able to connect with other intended parents who were in need of a surrogate and then helped them as well. And so now I get to still help surrogates and intended parents, but in a whole new way. And it's just been absolutely wonderful to be able to kind of transform my role from kind of doing to helping. And that has just been absolutely spectacular.
Oops, I mute myself. Thank you, Lissa. We do have a chat box, so if anybody does have any specific questions, then for Lissa or any of the team here, then do pop them on there. If you are listening to this outside of today, we recorded this, and we're going to be posting this out, and by all means do get in touch, because a lot of what the surrogates who are talking about today is going to resonate with you, and you may want to have a chat with everyone individually, and that's certainly something that we can make happen. Thanks, Lissa. Let's walk into Tracy's home. And Tracy, you have been a surrogate, you've been an egg donor, you're a mum of four girls, but also 3 dogs. You're a fundraiser, and now you're a surrogate manager helping women become surrogates. And I guess my question to you would be is around your role, and with your just quite extraordinary experience, what would you feel would be the most important message of hope that you can give IPs and surrogates?
Thank you. So, yeah, I was a surrogate 3 years ago, and since then, coming on as a surrogate manager for Brilliant Beginnings, things have sort of changed and progressed, like Lisa was saying, progressed over to helping people now, other like-minded ladies do the similar thing through screening and getting matched themselves, and then sort of seeing those teams progress. Um, my advice would be that my whole surrogacy journey has been full of ups and downs and lots of twists and turns. My intended mother originally said to me at the start of the journey that she sort of referenced it to being like getting on a roller coaster, that you didn't know which direction it was going to take you on next, but you will reach the end point. And I totally agree with that. I think for me, that end point was handing them back their baby, and that was totally worth everything we'd been on up to that point. And there was definitely lots of went through a lot along the way, but it was totally worth every up and down and movement. So my advice would be to buckle up at the beginning and to start with, and enjoy the ride. For me, surrogacy has given me some pretty amazing memories, and it's been totally worth it. So yeah, I just definitely, if it's something you're even considering or you're fascinated by, then definitely reach out, get in touch, and talk to us to find out more, and just see if it is something that you'd like to progress further with.
Lovely. Thank you, Tracy. And last but not least, T. T, you've had also 2 UK journeys, both very, very different. One carrying twins, and one carrying a singleton. And at the same time, working as a teacher, and now working alongside Lissa and Tracy as a surrogate manager. And for you, what would be the most important hope that you had for each of your journeys, and really, how did that flavor your match? And also, what impact did all of that have? With your hopes, how did that shape kind of your approach, and the dynamics in your family?
Yeah, thanks, Helen. So they were definitely very different journeys. Being a teacher during my first surrogacy, that's a really busy job, and my children were a lot younger then as well. So it was definitely a different experience. And I think for that first journey, my hopes were much simpler than they are now, kind of 4 years on. The hope that I had as a surrogate back then was simply to help somebody. I didn't really think much more beyond that, and I'm a very independent person, and very kind of headstrong, so I think possibly what I hadn't taken into account at that point was the importance of really looking after myself and looking after my own wellness and caring for myself during that busy time of my life as well. And having gone through that first journey, which did come with its challenges, you know, carrying twins is no joke, and the recovery after a C-section was quite slow and stuff, were definite points of reflection for me. So before I even started coming into a second journey, I had a really good talk with myself, and I had a good talk with the team at BB as well about, you know, how is this second journey going to be different? What are the hopes for this second journey? What do I need from that? And that underpinning hope, that feeling of wanting to help somebody and seeing these people having their baby and having those golden moments still really resonated for me. But I did have those new hopes for myself as well. I was really hopeful to make sure that I felt very safe in lots of different ways, psychologically, physically, emotionally safe, that the relationship with my children and my partner were protected and not impacted in any way by the surrogacy, and that it was positive for everybody involved, not just for myself and for the intended parents as well. And that really informed my match the second time round as well, because I obviously needed intended parents that could understand where I was coming from and could support that as well, you know, and could help wherever possible to protect those feelings of safety for me throughout the journey. And again, BB were amazing, and they got it absolutely spot on. My intended parents for my second journey, and I delivered in August of this year, have just been absolutely amazing, and they continue to be amazing. So though it was still a surrogacy pregnancy, and though it still ended with a C-section like my first journey, the recovery was very different. The overall experience has been really, really great as well. So I think though my hopes had maybe changed or evolved over time, BB definitely stepped up with that and were able to guide me and support me in making sure that I had the journeys that I wanted.
Thank you, T. And I guess kind of one of the questions actually that just while you're talking, all three of you were talking, I wondered whether I can ask you. And then if we do have any other questions from anyone, then you know, I'm sure we can direct that to the team. Is around, you know, your kind of hopes and motivations in relation to your partners, spouse, husbands, and how much of, you know, we always hear about, you know, kind of the motivations for a surrogate. We always know what the motivation is for IPs and what their hope is ultimately. But in terms of thinking about your partners and spouses, how much of their hopes and motivations is forms part of what your journey, and again, how does that flavor, you know, the way you've approached it, and also your IPs, I guess, at the same time. Maybe let's start right from the beginning again. And Lissa, have you got any, I know I'm putting you on the spot, have you got any thoughts around that?
Yes, I will say that my husband was key, especially in this last journey. I certainly couldn't have done it without his support the first time and through the first, you know, part of my last journey. But we certainly had some ups and downs getting pregnant, and we were unfortunately having a negative test after our second fourth transfer with kind of a second set of eggs. And so we were about ready to call it quits, and my husband sat us all down and said, no, you're not quitting. Like, we're going to do this. We have to keep going. We are going to figure this out. We're going to do this. And sure enough, the next one, I don't know what magic words he said, but he certainly kept us going. And my IPs are having Christmas with their 18-month-old now. So, you know, it was just incredible to see kind of something that I had started, you know, with surrogacy several years ago. And then, you know, we decided, oh, let's do it again. and then kind of to have it flipped and to be, my husband being kind of, he likes to say he was the creator of the baby this time around.
That's brilliant. That really is. Yeah, it's a lovely story. And T or Tracy, do you want to add anything to that? Tracy?
Yeah, I think originally I came into surrogacy after doing 2 egg donation cycles. And I clearly remember the conversation I had with my husband when I came back from the clinic, saying that the fertility clinic had given me some further information on surrogacy and had spoken to me about whether I'd be interested in looking at becoming a surrogate myself. And his initial words were, "Of course they have." And sort of like knowing me and knowing that, I do sort of volunteer for things quite often. And it was just like the next thing that it was going to be like, I'm going to do this sort of thing. So no, for us, we sat down, we looked at all the information, we looked at the different routes we could do it. And it was more of a case of why wouldn't we do it as opposed to why would we? We've got 4 amazing little girls, and knowing what that brings to the table for us, in being parents ourselves, and thinking if the tables were turned and we weren't able to have that ourselves, that, how we would feel, and sort of needing that support, we'd want someone else to step up for us to be able to become a family. So sort of being able to help someone and just give back, really. It's so lucky to have had mine quite easily, and that's just being able, I mean, was physically able to, so why wouldn't I? After having Isla, the second journey, we just needed, he had some apprehensions again. I'd had this sort of talking around like 6th pregnancy, so we just wanted to make sure that everything was going to be okay. And he had some reservations about, medically, was everything, going to be fine. So we just got it checked out. We got the advice. We answered any questions and that we both had from different consultants and doctors. And then when we got the go ahead, he felt comfortable to sort of progress with that. So it was just about making sure that any questions were answered, and sort of before we went into it, really. But I wouldn't, whether, I think it's definitely key to having a good support system around you, and whether that is a partner, husband, or whether it's your best friend, mum, whoever it is. I think it is key to have that support person, whoever that is, to hand and there for you throughout the whole thing.
Thanks, Tracy. I guess, one of the things, when Natalie and I were setting up Brilliant Beginnings, was our, kind of our eyes on the fact that actually, this wasn't just about, the baby at the end. It wasn't just about the IPs. It was about the whole surrogate family, and wanting to, make sure that actually people had that safe route through. And, because the dream and the hope and the motivation, is so complex and so multi-layered. And yet we were seeing people kind of getting into these awful sort of muddles, and, kind of getting to an end point where they were, didn't necessarily have the most positive story to tell about how the baby came into the world, but it was just simply because they were navigating through all of these complexities. So, I think, getting to the heart of what you guys are doing and what you're thinking about doing is just so important. And making sure that we want to be able to do what we can. And as you said, Tracy, it's kind of one of those things. It's like, well, why wouldn't we? It was more of a question of why wouldn't we than rather why would we. But T, let's hear from you around that. And
so it would be very easy to be flippant and say, my partner's motivations around surrogacy was to stay on the right side of me, because I'm quite a headstrong person. But, the truth is that he has been absolutely amazing. We absolutely adore our children, and I know that he has bonded really well with all of our IPs as well. And so my hopes for them to have a family have become his hopes for them also to have a family, and his motivation, but also on a completely different level as well. I think the reason he's such a good supporter as well is because we both have a really strong shared value that actually by doing something like surrogacy, and from the jobs that we have and have had in the past as well, we feel like actually we're being very good role models for our children, you know, and we are sending very strong messages to them about what it means to be empathetic, what it means to be able to help people and to kind of spread kindness and love, which sounds, you know, like a really basic message, but it's so important for children to be able to learn that. So I think probably if I was going to say anything I was really proud of about my partner's support, it would be that as well. Yeah.
I haven't introduced Nikki, but I'd like to do that now. Nikki, I'm not putting Nikki on the spot. I have, I am a little, but Nikki is one of our client managers, and she supports the teams here in the UK that are already matched, and so is very much, you know, in the journey with those teams that are already matched. Nikki is also a surrogate. You know, I guess the question that I've got for you, Nikki, is, you know, in terms of support and, you know, doing a solo journey, although you're not solo, and one of the things that we hope that, you know, in your role, you're supporting your team, so you do understand the value of some kind of support, but both as your experience as a client manager and as a surrogate and a solo parent, how does that factor into hopes and dreams and motivations?
Helen. So yeah, for me, my hopes were to always to help somebody to be able to have children. I'm lucky enough to have 3 boys. Myself and their dad are separated, but we do still get on really, really well. So I still had his support in as much as he was always going to be around for the boys to make sure that they were okay whilst I was going through this. But I also had my best friend who I told right from the beginning, this is what I'm looking into. And she wasn't shocked or surprised at all that it was something that I wanted to do. And she was involved in the initial conversations with T. So she was behind me throughout the whole journey, and she knew how important it was to me to go through this and to do it for myself, but she wanted to be there as well to help and to support me. So I knew that I didn't have to worry about my boys because their dad was there for them, and I had the BB team. So I had T whilst I was going through screening, I had Laura as my client manager. So I knew that I was fully supported and that I didn't have any concerns about someone not being there for me. And unfortunately, I did miscarry, and I told my best friend, and that afternoon she was there with lunch and just there to cheer me up and to make sure that I was all right. So even though it wasn't a fantastic experience because it didn't work out how we wanted, I still had people around me to make sure that I was all right and to pick me up. So this is a massive thing that that women are entering into, but to have those people around you that are going to support you and be there for you is really, really important. And I was so lucky to have that all around me.
Yeah, and I think what we've seen through the years, and Nikki, I know, you know, we've spoken about this, is that, you know, it might not have been, you know, the journey that you had hoped for, but ultimately, you know, the boy's dad and also your friend, you know, their hope in helping you achieve, you know that even that part of the journey is just so important, and also that then you know you're supported afterwards. And you know, I guess what I see is, you know, whatever supporter, you know, one of the things that is so important, whether, you know, the support comes from your spouse or partner or best friend or ex-partner or mum or aunt or sister, is that actually they are that your dream is shared with them.
Yeah.
And because you know for sure, you know, they're going to catch you, you know, we'll do some catching, but we need them to do some catching too. So, and I think, Tracy, your point about this being a roller coaster, you know, the highs are high, the lows are low. So, you know, sharing the hope and the motivation is so important. Okay, have we got any other questions? I haven't seen any more coming in. No. Okay, well, I guess that draws us very neatly to a close. I want to just say thank you to T, Lissa, Tracy, and for putting Nikki most especially on the spot to tell her story as well. If anybody does have any questions or queries following this or following the recording, then please do be in touch with us at Brilliant Beginnings. There's contact details on our website. You can also email us at bbhello. We are on Twitter, we're on Instagram, and you can book an informal chat with Lissa, T, or Tracy at any point. Their diaries have always got openings to speak to people at any stage. And from all of us here at Brilliant Beginnings, we just want to wish you lots of love and lots of happiness for Christmas coming up and for 2022. Thank you so much.